Morning, how's everybody? Good, 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 good. Let me take a moment and introduce you to the members of the Citizens Oversight Task Force. As you all know, this is part of the consent decree. Oh, there she is over there. Part of the consent decree, and we were told that we had to appoint these people by July 1, and so we've done that. I think we're missing a few. So under the consent decree, it said that we had to appoint 5. And so we went back to the Department of Justice and said that we wanted to appoint a few more. So we've actually appointed 9. And let me just name the individuals. Denise Duvall, Ralph, where's Denise? Hey, Denise. Ralph Hughes, Edward Jackson, Valencia Johnson, Danielle Kushner, Danielle Levine, Marvin McKinstry, Andrew Ryanell, and Leland Shelton. Danielle is actually out of town. So what we did was we had individuals to apply, and I think we had over about 100 applications. And what I know we appointed 2 people who are under 30. Are you all here? They're not here. The under 30 crowd is not here. What does that say about the under 30 people? Yeah, so I think there was one Latino that was that had actually applied, so they automatically were chosen. Not here. Okay.
They're on the website. The website is now live.
Right. And so I wanted to make sure they were diverse. We've got men, we've got women, we've got people of color, and for the most part, I went through. I think we got some pretty qualified. I think a former police officer is here. Yeah, I thought I recognized you. I think you were a police officer when I was a council person. Am I correct? Sure. And former legislator, Senator Ralph Hughes is here, who sat on the Judicial Proceedings Committee for both committees, Judiciary and Judicial Proceedings Committee for the state as a state senator, served some 27 years. So we got quite a few folks who are experienced in policy, and I trust them to make great decisions as members of that oversight task force. So these are your individuals. I don't know if you all have questions for them.
Yeah, what exactly will this group do?
Well, according to our consent decree, they are they're the task force that is tasked with interviewing individuals. I think you have to work something like, 10 to 20 hours a month. They have to solicit information from the various agencies. They're the oversight task force that's supposed to help us make decisions around how we meet the needs of the consent decree. I expect them to meet with various agencies, with cabinet members such as the Baltimore Police Department, the Office of Civil Rights and Wage Enforcement, to review how we are currently handling our civil rights oversight, civilian oversight. They get an opportunity to interview various community members and organizations to identify their concerns and engage with subject matters experts to ascertain best practices. At the end of their research, the Community Oversight Task Force is required to provide recommendations for improvement to not only the Civilian Review Board, but the entire civilian oversight system. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them. And so all their recommendations will be made public and will be open for comments for 30 days after posting before their final report is presented. I'm really confident that we've chosen some good people who I believe will be able to do this work. It is a commitment of time, and I'm sure that they will take their positions seriously.
Is there a chair among those gathered here today?
You know, I didn't choose a chair.
Is there somebody on that might speak to us about their goals for their service?
I think you can ask any of them any questions you like.
Do you mind?
Come
No,
to
not at all.
And
Just
you're
in New York.
Yeah.
Minister Marvin McKinstry of the Victory House of Worship Church. Also work at the Youth Opportunity Center and do a lot of community work in West Baltimore, right in the Western District. My personal goals is to serve the city that I love and to bring a different perspective, kind of a grassroots, a local perspective the perspective of the people to the conversations that we need to have as we look at improvements and that sort of thing, to interview members or potential members of community oversight, as though I'm someone that lives in West Baltimore, lives in the Western District, that has experienced everything that our city has gone through, and want to, interview somebody from that perspective, not the technicalities of it. I have read the consent decree 2 times through, and I started again on it last night. Didn't get very far because I fell asleep, but I have taken the time to try to familiarize myself with the consent decree. But I want to bring the citizens' voice to this process, which I believe is very important.
How do you spell it?
MCKENSTRY.
How long have you been a minister in West Baltimore?
For about 8 years.
You've seen a lot.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Northeast Baltimore, then we got to get a female perspective of it.
Good morning.
Morning. Can you please state your first and last name?
Yes, my first name is Edward, last name Jackson.
You are former BPD.
Yes,
Right.
yes, ma'am. I'm a retired colonel from the Baltimore Police Department.
And when did you retire?
I retired on June 30th, 2004. I was head of the administrative division at the time of my retirement.
From your perspective, what needs to change in the Baltimore Police Department?
There's a lot of things that need to change. When I was in the police department, I argued that there are 6 basic institutions of social control, and the first 3 are family, community, and our faith-based institutions. And it's their job to get individuals to subscribe to the dominant values of society. When they fail, then you have police, courts, and corrections. And many of our neighborhoods are saturated with police, courts, and corrections. And there are social problems. The mayor can't do it all. No one entity can solve the problems of Baltimore. I'm a professor now, and I teach criminal justice. And I want my students to understand that there's a lot of responsibility that comes with a legal education. And I want them to see that it's not about the money, it's about the service. And if you do the right service, all those other things will come. So I guess my agenda is I'm born and raised in Baltimore. I'm sure I'll die here. And I've raised 2 sons here, and I want to see the city and the police department that I so love and was proud to serve on get better. And the only way it's going to get better is we have to look at how police officers are trained. We have to look at how they approach problems. We even have to evaluate whether every social problem in Baltimore requires a police response. And so those are the kind of things that I'm hoping to talk about with my involvement on the task force.
Go ahead. Oops, I'm sorry.
I'm Denise Duval, D-U-V-A-L. I see this task force, I mean, we haven't even met yet, so you can't, we can't tell you exactly what we're doing yet, but I see this task force as a great opportunity to promote better relations between the police and the communities of Baltimore City. I've worked for many, many years advocating for the communities of Baltimore City as a lawyer at the Community Law Center, also as the Deputy Housing Commissioner for the City of Baltimore. And so I'm familiar with a lot of the issues that the communities face. And if the mayor's asking me to work on this committee, of course I'm going to take this opportunity to promote better relations between the community and the police, a problem that is not only facing Baltimore, but pretty much every city in America, and a problem that we need to put our best efforts at solving.
Dr. Valencia Johnson, West Baltimore, live in West Baltimore, a little nervous. I was also a former adjunct professor at Coppin State University and Baltimore City Community College, teaching law and criminal justice. Anything else?
What you hoping to do?
Oh, well, my goals is to be able to complete the mission that is set forth by the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, and the mayor's office. And basically, the goal is to make sure transparency, integrity, and we have to look for integrity, loyalty, and being a civil servant to the community of Baltimore. I have advocated for the community of Baltimore and worked in the school systems as well. So I have seen a lot of, how can I say it, just disparities and negativity. So I want to bring a positive light to not only the police department, but to the community to gain that trust. And that's what we need right now in the city of Baltimore. We need to gain that trust, build that trust back up, work together as a family, as we are in the city of Baltimore. Thank you.
My name is Ralph M. Hughes. I'm former state senator, former professor at Coppin University, tenured professor at Coppin University. Do you want to take questions or just tell you a little bit more about myself?
Well, no, I mean, I think the question for all of you is, this is a new animal for the city of Baltimore. It's a new entity. We have a new, obviously, a court order now about police reform, et cetera. And we're just trying to get a sense of what all of you bring to this process. And it's kind of a vague idea.
Yeah.
What is this?
Well,
really?
one thing that I'm sure we'll be looking at is the Civilian Review Board. I get a chance to revisit that again. The Civilian Review Board, how is it functioning? Is it functioning as the community really wants it to function? Is it really a Civilian Review Board? What can we do to improve it? What recommendations we can make to the General Assembly to improve the Civilian Review Board? And also make recommendations as far as the community and the police department functioning together and functioning well together. The strategies that the police department use. Is the training adequate? I think we want to look at whether or not the training is going to be adequate, or what type of training has to be improved to improve the relationship between the citizens and the police.
Sorry, do you think that the training does need to be improved for police officers?
Say that louder again.
You're saying you think that the training might need to be improved for police officers?
Oh, yes, I do.
And do you think that more of the police officers should be coming from Baltimore schools?
Well, personally, I do, but I think that's something the whole committee will talk about and discuss.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Levine. That's Levine. I'm the school mediation coordinator at the Baltimore Community Mediation Center, and I'm a former assistant professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. The good thing about going last is I get to basically say, well, most of my colleagues have covered the important things. But I would just add to what they said. I do think that the task force is a really great opportunity to look at all of the accountability structures for the police force in the context of the overall relationship between the police force and the citizens of Baltimore. And also look at, as my colleague mentioned, ways that the police force can work with other organizations, other institutions of government, or institutions in the city to address violence and conflict in sort of a multifaceted way and bring the best tools to bear there, while also sort of deepening the democratic relationship that people in Baltimore have with their city institutions. Thanks.
I'd like to ask a question before they leave that is
Okay.
kind of a broader question, but the mayor, you probably should take the question. So I know the union contract is still under negotiation.
Yes.
And in this consent decree, it talks about civilian participation in the disciplinary process.
Yes.
Have you looked around the country at what's going on in these criminal cases where jurors are unable to do that, to hold police officers accountable? Now, that's a very high standard in a criminal case.
Well,
Does it give you pause as to whether this may be a good idea or maybe not such a good idea? If your goal is to get better accountability and you look around the country and see that that's not happening when civilians are participating in the process, does it give you pause?
no, it doesn't. Let me just say that I just came back from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and many cities, as you well know, have been under consent decrees. And everybody's conversation around reducing violence and having better police departments is around how do we get better police and community relationship. Is the training what it should be? How do we create cultural diversity inside of our police departments? How do we recruit from within our own communities? And all of that, at least in the opinions that that have been shared with me by other mayors around the country, is focused on improving police department and community relations. I think one of the things that was said that I heard, especially from the former police officer, is that we really need to evaluate who needs to be in this. And when we had our call to action, that was a part of it. You know, it's not just about the police and the community, it's about the resources. It's also about how everybody gets in, as I call the call to actions. How do you get into the solution? Because the solution is not just police. The solution is, what are the resources that you're bringing to bear? When you talk about training, as you pointed out, when you talk about training, training costs dollars. So what kind of training are you talking about? What are the best practices around the nation in terms of training that's put in place that really does improve a police department? When I had a conversation with one of the former police chiefs in New York, he talked about how they train their police officers in terms of cultural diversity to understand every community that exists in your neighborhood. You know, neighborhoods aren't just black, aren't just white. Today they're Latino, they're Asian, they're mixed. How do you deal with those communities in such a way that they don't feel that you're coming in and taking over their neighborhoods, taking over their communities? And so that has to be a part of the training. The one thing that I did enjoy hearing was that we had somebody here from mediation. And in our call to action, one of the things that we had was a demonstration on how you de-escalate violence and having those conversations with community groups and organizations. It's not just about policing. It's not just about the community. It's about the resources that we bring to bear. The other thing that happened when I was in Miami was FEMA, a conversation with FEMA, which I hadn't really given much thought in terms of what they can bring to the table. And one of the things they talked about with us was the possibility of funding some of our technological needs inside of our police department. We've got to make sure that they have the resources, the technological advances that are out there in order to reduce the violence. Violence reduction is among the goals that we have. Question? Is that it? Thank you all. Any other questions for me?
I wanted to ask you about this bike lane settlement. What is your hope for what sort of modified plan can come forward as you take on this review of the bike lanes?
Well, you know, one of the things that was very concerning to us was the fact that the fire department told us that they needed a certain amount of feet. I don't know if you all have been down Potomac. I've been down Potomac and swinging into that street. So while we will protect the bike lanes, what we were able to squeeze out, if we are able to angle park, and that's acceptable by the community, it gives them additional parking spaces, but it also protects the bike lanes. And so I'm glad that we've come to this point. And as I said to people initially, I have a responsibility to protect the bikers, but I also have a responsibility to protect the neighbors as well.
So angle parking on the left, if you're going
Where they already park. Remember, on the left side of the street.
And what about the parking that's parallel parking on the right side of the street next to the bike lane? Is that going to be gone?
Eliminated.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. Which again gives you that space for fire trucks and whoever, but it also, when you angle park, you add additional parking spaces as well.
Potomac was not an angle parking space.
No,
Yeah.
no, it was not.
So that's the terms of this settlement?
That's what we're looking at, yes. I mean, I don't know about the terms of the settlement. That was the solution that we had come up with.
From the administration?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think this question of fire department and emergency vehicle access means to the larger question of bike lanes in the city?
Well, you know, I would think that we would want to make sure that we're protecting all of our citizens all around. I think for the most part, what we found is that most of them are providing the length that is necessary. Potomac, as you well know, is a small street. And oftentimes when in our quest to do what we want for everyone, we don't dot all our I's and cross all our T's. On Potomac Avenue, we didn't dot all our I's and cross all our T's. But we will protect that bike lane. It will not be removed. And if we angle park, we provide emergency vehicles the access that they need.
So all the separators and everything stay where they are. Is that right? In the lane? bike lane the same width? Just on the right side?
But the,
I'm sorry, is the bike lane just on the right side?
It's on the right
Yeah, the
side.
bike lane is on the right side of the street.
so there won't be any parking on that side of the street?
Well, no, it wasn't before. I mean, when they put in the bike lane, they took out the parking.
And
So
all
we're
the
not,
parking's gonna go to, right now, they park in the middle of the street and on the left side
right.
of the street.
Mhm. And that's
It's gonna
what,
be all angled.
all angled.
Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
And,
All right.
and are you now going to be evaluating the larger issue of bike lanes throughout the city, like Maryland Avenue, and those areas that there are protected bike lanes, making sure that those streets also are compliant with?
Yeah, I think most of those streets are in compliance. The issue was that Potomac Avenue is such a small street. You know how wide Maryland Avenue is, so I don't think there's an issue there. Any other questions for me?
I wanted to ask you about the traffic cameras. I know the trial period started on Monday with a handful of cameras. Where do you see, what's your timeline for the program? Like, where does it go from here in terms of adding additional cameras after this trial period is over with?
I don't know that we're adding additional cameras right away. I know that 30-day process as it relates to reviewing them and make sure they're calibrated and that we're operating properly. I will check with the Department of Transportation to see if we're going to escalate those at any time. But right now, I think we're where we need to be. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to dance out of here. Okay, thank you. Thank you all.